right. Looks like we're live.
Awesome.
So we'll give it a second here, because I'm sure there's a delay in some of the things and people kind of coming in, and then we'll give it here. It's like the counter's on 20 seconds. We'll give it to 60 seconds. We'll give it to a minute, and then we'll kick it off.
Yeah, that delay we learned the hard way about the delay with starting church and starting with the good stuff early.
Yeah.
I missed all the good stuff, Bishop. Can you replay that?
Yeah, you're talking about something that I don't know. So what do you? I don't know. I only got half the story. You just telling me what I shouldn't be doing. Tell me where's this come from, right? So,
and when you ask me to replay the word has been spoken, man, and God puts it up on my heart to say it a second time.
It just came to you like I can't.
It just came to me. The word came to me. So
yeah, he's not calling back. He's not calling back. So, all right. So, thank you all for tuning in to either a one-off or this is, maybe going to become part of an ongoing thing. To really what we're calling the not so difficult, uncomfortable conversation. And you've got me, Shane Howard, and Alex Todd here. Alex and I are longtime friends. We met some time ago. So I'm going to let Alex go first and tell a little bit about his journey through life and kind of where we've got. I'll let him talk about how we met. I also wanted to tell what he was doing and how we met because it will add some cultural relevance to some of what's going on too. So, Alex, I'll let you kind of take the floor with that.
Well, you know you can't give the floor open to a preacher, man, without giving me a time limit.
No, you run. We got no time, so we got all the time in the world. We got as much time as God's willing to give us. So
I might break off into a sermon here,
that's okay. That's okay.
But no, I appreciate you inviting me on this evening and have an opportunity just to dialogue and chat. And I really hope that tonight we're doing more so chatting than anything. I do not consider myself in any way a psychologist or a professional expert on race relations. But I've lived long. I've lived some time on this earth. And my grandmother used to say, if you live long enough, you'll see some things. So I will hope that tonight we can chat about experiences and just have some honest discussions about race. And I think it is so needed, especially with what is going on in our world today. Of course, we met a long time ago, man. I don't even consider you a friend. I consider you as a brother.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
From another mother, of course.
Sure, no doubt.
And we've known each other. It's over a decade. If I had to put
so we're good. Well, we're like 16, 17 years in. So
it's been a while. It's been a long while. And
what were you doing at the time when we met? How did we meet? Tell me explain what you were doing. 'Cause I don't know if you talk about this stuff publicly much.
So at the time I was managing, and I'm going to use the more educated phrase, intellectual property at the time, which is just short for managing songwriters, producers, and artists. And I was managing a gentleman by the name of, at that time was real name was Aubrey Graham, but he was Drake, who's now known as Drizzy Drake. And we became really good friends just because I think, even though we're different colors, man, I think you vibe with me, and you can feel my heartbeat, and I could feel your heartbeat, and we just became really cool. So much so that as we were doing business together, I think you were working with the Nappy Roots at that time, which is
interesting. I had a friend with the Nappy Roots. Yeah.
Nappy Roots, and with a very ethnic-centric group, it's really odd that a white guy would be working with them. But even outside of, both of us kind of moving on in different directions outside of music, we kind of remain close. Uh,
Yeah, and it really it started out like, you know, if you remember, what I was doing is I was actually working with a friend of mine from Miami, named Troy, who he and I met playing college basketball, and I didn't know anything about the music business, much like I've not known a lot about what I go into, and you know, I I didn't know, actually I didn't know. We had some common friends through some different people and different
mhm.
music and writers through Lorenzo Martin and Mark
Yeah.
Smilo and, you know, some different people. And at the time, Drake wasn't anybody. I mean, Drake
Yeah.
was he was the actor on the, you know, on Degrassi, right?
Yeah.
And his music didn't sound like it sounds right now,
No, no.
you know, and those things. But it was really just me offering to help. You know, how can I help? Because I wanted to learn about the industry. Because you have some family in that work that also does some work in the industry as well. That's
Mhm.
correct. So
Yeah.
so that's how we met, and it was back in those times. It was chatting on a sidekick or
Yeah. You
you
remember
know,
those days, the sidekick?
yeah, AOL Instant Messenger and those kind of things. That, you know, it wasn't really the other, but you know, I think both of us, you know, naturally gravitated to the other because I don't like, neither of us ever asked of anything from the other. It was always just a genuine movement of, you know, hey, I'm making headway over here and making connections. You know, can I help you with a phone call or connect somebody
Mhm.
over here? And in the same way, and you were nothing but, you know, open arms and willing to share your insight and share your experience. So
Mhm.
that's definitely how we met. Now
Yeah.
you don't do that now. You know, where have you kind of progressed from working in the music industry to where you're at now?
Sure. So now I've kind of progressed into the church house, and I use that word. It's my slang. I've Over the last maybe 7 to 8 years, I've been working with youth. My ministry has taken on a lot of different um, paradigms, from managing athletics within the church house, and then also too managing those folks who have they're in the church but they're not quite in the church, if I could say it that way. They're showing up on, and I go to church on Saturdays, full disclosure, but they show
Yeah.
up on church on Saturdays, but they really not really in the church. So I do a lot of outreach programs to try to, bring people to the church, because the church is evolving, whether we like it or not. The church is evolving, and I think this new group that are probably out on the streets now, they're seeing Jesus and they're seeing the church in a whole different light. And I think because of my age, where I'm getting older, but I'm not too old, I think I'm able to kind of bridge the old traditional with this new contemporary movement of theology and religion. Uh,
So what got you into that? How did you go from, I mean, let's be honest, the music industry is not the most morally sound, you know, ethical world to work in. So how did you go from that into what you're doing?
so interesting enough, uh, I think God always had a covering over me, and He knew what He wanted me to do, even though I did not want to do it. And so some of the things that you read about and hear about, and people talk about this Illuminati, those were things that I never got involved with or never, had
Yeah.
around me. But one of the things that did come back to me, and this happened in 2010, was I started to come back to the roots. My father is a minister, been a pastor for over 40 some odd years. Ever since I've been born, all I've known is just going to the church. And I'm in 2010, at the height of really my management career. I had a production team and did the Justin Bieber single "One Less Lonely Girl." We had just done that, and the record was spinning heavy on radio. We did a deal with L.A. Reid, and I had another writer who did a big record for Leona Lewis that year, and she got signed to L.A. Reid. And then just a message came to me one morning and said, "What would you profit to gain the whole world and lose your soul?" And man, I jumped up and went and took a shower, and I just couldn't stop crying. And it was one of those rebirth moments where you're like, you know what? Let me change my life and do some different things. And ever since 2010, I've been wherever I can to help the church. I can help it. And it was about 4 years ago when the church decided, hey, we want you to be, an elder in the church. And I got ordained. And then I really, really, with getting ordained, not that you have to be ordained to be called and do the work of God, but that assignment really thrust me into the forefront of my denomination and the work. And so what I've even been doing, and I probably should have mentioned this a little earlier as well, I have a online ministry every Friday night. I bring in some of the more, bigger known speakers, some of the bigger known singers that will come on, and we'll have call it a prayer service, but it's evolved into more so like a church service online. There's also a television show that my daughters and I kind of broadcast, and it's for the young folks. We don't do heavy theology. We don't try to break down the three angels message and go into Revelation. But what we did was just practical things for young folks. We want you to be good Christians. Don't steal nothing. Don't kill. Love on your neighbor. Get good grades in school.
Yeah.
We even did a series, Shane, and this is probably one of our most watched series, where we did a 6-week series where we talked about dating, and we talked about don't date nobody, don't date no guy if he ain't got no job and he ain't got no car. And that was really hilarious. And so, I've kind of found my niche in Christianity, and I said religion, but I probably need to leave religion to the side. I've found my niche in Christianity because Christianity is in me.
Yep.
And 2010, it all bubbled up, similar to the Arab Spring rising, when so much stuff had bubbled up over in the Arab countries, and might even be bubbling up here in the United States. It just, that Christianity rose up on me. And when something rises in you, one of the things, if you ever had some rise up in you, is like a pot on a stove. When you get the boiling so much, if you have a lid over the top, you will see that lid just start to bubble, 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 bubble. And if you don't pull that lid off, man, that lid's gonna either pop itself, or you'll just start to see the steam and the water pop out. Christianity just popped out of me, and I've been excited ever since.
No doubt. So it's safe to say, for the audience purposes, when we get into this subject of religion, or when we get into not religion, well, religion may tie over into some of it, but when we get into the topic of racism, where are your, we'll call them political views? Where do you stand? Because we hear a lot about right and left and all these different things. Where do you stand? I'll share when I explain and talk about my story a little bit. I'll share some of that too.
Okay. So here's the thing. I know a lot of people decide they're going to be Democrat or Republican, left or right. As a Christian, and even before I came back to the church, I've always just had a center-right view on everything. I try to look at what would Jesus do. I try to make sense of how I would feel in particular situations. But I've just kind of taken each and every political view, each and every stance. I don't think I've leaned Democrat. I don't think I've leaned Republican. I just kind of lean on what's the right thing to do.
Yep.
And I think if a lot of us did that, I think we would be in a better place. If I really had to boil down and say, what are you though? I think most of my views are more conservative, especially around finances.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Most of my views are conservative, and a lot of it has to do just because the Christian belief, you believe in a lot of conservative ideas. But I will say this, I do have quite a few liberal views when it comes down to trying to tell somebody else what to do.
Sure.
I feel like you should keep your mouth shut. If you are in a position to help lead, in a lot of cases I am, because I'm in a leadership position in the church, there are times when I will give people advice and lead them, but I try not to stick my nose in other people's business as much as possible, only when I'm invited to do so.
Cool. Well, I think that gives everybody a general, if they watch it from beginning to end, they don't do like maybe some of your sermons, just pop on in the middle and just assume, those things. If they watch from the beginning, then they'll get that. So I'll share a little bit about me and my journey and those kind of things. So AT and I'm actually going to share a little bit about my life before AT and I got together, because it definitely has influenced, it 100% has influenced why even I'm having this conversation today. So I grew up in a not so great home. I definitely dealt with things as a kid, mental abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. I had ADHD as a young child. I moved 17 times the first 18 years of my life. I graduated 154th out of 187 in high school with a 1.67 GPA. You can't actually see it, but over there on the wall right here is actually my my transcript. So I keep it up because a lot of people think I'm bluffing or what have you. I wasn't a great student. I've dealt with a lot, right? I've progressed through life. I've had a gun pulled on me 3 times in my life. I've dealt with different scenarios. I've had friends go off, to jail and then penitentiary and all those different things. I tell people that I'm blessed because of all of those things. There were times when I was a kid, there was a time going through things that in my head, all I could think about is why are no adults saying anything? Why is nobody saying anything? So what that has instilled within me is, and I've got a therapist that I go and talk to and have therapy. And I think it's something that's totally not addressed. And we can maybe even do a whole different episode on that and why that's important for really so many men. But she calls it the Superman complex, where it's developed in me. I'm like Batman. I think I can just go and save everybody, and I can fix every problem. But more importantly, I inherently I don't have it in me to sit back and allow people who have either been devalued or don't have a voice and allow clear and blatant ignorance, abuse, or just neglect, like not even like neglect as in like I'm hurting you, like we're not even going to pay attention to you. We're not going to act as if it doesn't even exist. And so that's kind of my life. I worked in the automotive industry, so I did that. I was actually doing that at the same time of also meeting AT because I had to pay the bills, and a lot of people believe that a lot of these artists that have all this jewelry and have all these fancy cars, that they're making all this money and they're doing all these things. And if they only knew the truth, and if they only knew the realities of it, it's kind of like certain people, coming off as a tough guy or coming off as you're not really that. So I did that. And then in 2008, 2009, when the economy tanked, I set out on my first, what I'll call real entrepreneurial journey. I took the last $1,500 I had to my name, went through a divorce, and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go see if I can impact the life of some youth. And that's really where our life is really kind of paralleled in a lot of ways. Of around that same time, we both have kind of dedicated our life and dedicated our walk, if you will, into helping youth and help educating youth. And, I obviously have my own reasons for that. So I started a college recruiting service, helping high school age athletes, ended up growing that into helping kids in 53 different countries around the world that wanted to come play sports here in the United States. I've got partnerships and have sat down in private dinners with the Minister of Education in Shanghai to partner with multinational governments. And, there's not many countries that I can walk around and not find somebody that I'm connected to. I've visited the U.S. Embassy in New Zealand, like all these different things that I can, we can throw out there. In 2018, I was recognized by the Kentucky Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame as an emerging entrepreneur, which, I'm absolutely honored for that. And now I've kind of shifted away. I've now shut that company down. It was just time, and I've dedicated the next stage of my journey into what's called accepting the challenges and doing public speaking. I've given 300 plus talks on 4 different continents. And, that's the next stage. I can't do it right now. I can't do it right now, but when I'm done, we're definitely going to be having a conversation to figure out how you can, maybe get a couple high schools, and get me booked in to come down and speak in your area, because I'd love that. And I'd like to come to the house and sit down with the family and have a have a good meal too.
Some good food. Eat some good food.
Absolutely. So that's me. That's kind of where I'm at. That's AT. You know, I will preface the same way AT did. I am not an expert in race. I'm not an expert in race relations. I'm not a psychologist. Don't come here if that's what you're looking for. You know, come here if you want two guys with completely different backgrounds whose life intersected and who see things the same, and also we see things differently. And race has to be talked about. It has to be a discussion that starts that is had. And I'm going to be honest with you. The last couple of days have drained me. I've been exhausted. I'm going to do my best not to get emotional on here. But what I've tried to do this first episode is what I do notice, and I want to address, because I don't want this to be just this negative, it's all this stuff. That's not the case. And you can agree or disagree, because I don't know how your social media feeds show or what they show, but I can tell you that there's a lot of white people. And listen, we're going to use the term white people and black people, because that is it. That's what we are. That is what it is. You can agree or disagree with it, but you know, I know there's white people that they cringe when they hear that, right? Like they don't like. There's no other way. I'm not going to just call people because you're white. We're referencing you're white. So I have seen a lot of white people that in past, when past things have happened, when past egregious events occurred, when past, you know, racial crimes, horrible things that have happened to people because they're black have happened, that didn't say anything, that didn't speak up. And I will tell you right now, I went on Instagram earlier for the first time today, and it was all just black squares. It was all black squares. Now I know that's something little. And, you know, I think we have to realize that there has to be progress, right? Racism isn't a thing that we're going to flip a switch.
No.
And tomorrow, AT, you get to walk around and enjoy the same privileges I do as a white man. Not going to happen.
I wish.
Not going to happen. But I've seen, and I don't know what you've seen, but I've seen a lot more white people speaking out. I don't know what, I haven't been able to articulate it yet, but there's more white people speaking up. What do you see?
Well, I'm seeing that, and here's the thing. And next year tell us something different. Tomorrow tell us the real story. But I think what people are speaking up for is injustice.
Okay.
Are they speaking up for the black race? Or are they saying we should treat them? I don't know, but I do see that they are speaking up for injustice, an injustice that was clearly on tape and on video.
Yeah.
So next year, a year from now, 2-3 years from now, I'll see what, as we're calling them, white people will do. I do want to bring out something that was interesting, though, as you were sitting here talking. And you said one thing. You said, I don't know what you're coming here for. I think your title really gives us a great direction of what we should be doing here. It's conversation.
Yeah.
I think the conversation between black people and white people is long overdue. And I think when we do have a conversation, we will find out that we have so many things in common that just the conversation alone will bring us together. You talked about growing up and how you had such a rough life, and how you went to, what was it, 17 out of 18 different?
Yeah, 17. I moved 17 times out of my first 18 years of life.
Times different homes. If you were to hear this, no, let's just take away that I can see you and you can see me. If you were to hear your story, you think, oh, that's a black guy.
100%.
Had a rough time in life. When my story says I was born in a pastoral home, mother and father worked for the church, weren't rich people, but just regular middle class people. Lived in a beach town most of my life. Kind of just went through college, no problems, no issues. You would think I'm the white guy.
100%. 100%.
But it's interesting enough that our paths, and this is probably an eye-opening experience, just sitting and talking with you. Our paths from different places in life. I should be white, you should be black. That's what the stereotype says. That at the end of the day, we're doing the same thing in life.
Absolutely. Now I'm now in full contrast, and I know you're gonna have I know some of your congregation and your bubble, like my bubble, right? My bubble is entrepreneurial and sports. Your bubble revolves around youth and in the church and those kind of things. It's what's closest to us. I'm probably gonna slip up and say some words that hopefully isn't offensive. While we're the same, I'm a lot more rough around the edges. I'm a very direct. I don't have a higher education. I don't know the last time I sat down and read a book. I struggle to write. I up until probably 10 years ago, I did multiplication tables still on my fingers. So, I'm going to be, when you hear these conversations, I'm going to be rough and around the edges. And, I'm sure I'm going to slip up and offend somebody with something because it's funny. I had this conversation today, and everything comes down to intent, right? Like if you and I are sitting and hanging out all day, eating some wings and watching sports, there are going to be jokes made about a white person doing something, and there are going to be jokes made about a black person doing something. And it is the intent behind where that comes from, right? So because I have shown my authenticity and who I am to you repeatedly over time, where my intent comes from, and I know where your intent comes from. So sometimes, and I understand why, there are white people in a community or in any community that say, well, I just can't, I have to stay away from it because I don't know what to say, or it's going to be taken out of context, or that's probably because you've never addressed racism, that it even exists. You've blindly denied it. So when you say the conversation has to be had, I think so part of what we have, and you're from the South. Where you grew up in North Carolina, right?
North Carolina, lived in Georgia, South Carolina. I mean,
you're from the South. Technically, Kentucky's considered the South, but we could debate that. I'm sure some people will want to debate that. But there are a couple of things that either consciously or subconsciously we're told in the South you don't publicly talk about. Yes. Right. Yes. Now I'm going to speak from my experience as a white person, and I'd love to hear your experience as a black person. But it's what somehow is in my head that I'm not supposed to publicly talk about racism. Meaning you just don't address it. If it comes up, you don't talk. You go the other way. You don't talk about it. I'm not supposed to talk about religion publicly. I'm not supposed to ask people about politics and their beliefs. And I'm not supposed to talk about money. So you don't talk about those things. Well, and listen, just because there's more numbers, there's more white people living in poverty than there are black people living in poverty, because there's just more of us. Right?
That's what the facts say.
Yeah. So, but one person, no different than my situation and what I went through as life. I feel horrible. I felt horrible going through it. Are there kids who've had worse childhoods than me? 100%. Right. So it's perception of what we're dealing with. But when what we talk about, if we don't learn to have conversations, because what we really what we have, there's actually something that I believe, and this isn't devaluing racism. I think there's something that stands above a lot of our issues. And that is we have an epidemic of silence. We don't talk.
Yes.
We don't talk. And I know it's different in different societies, ethnicities, religions. When somebody's being abused in a family, the other family members know about it.
Yep.
How many people talk up and speak up or go over that house and check somebody because this and that's happening? Right? Or this person over here is doing this to this person and this relative, and we're not going to talk about it, but we're not going to allow them to be together anymore. Right. So it's these things that don't get publicly talked about. and we have a silence of I'm not going to address it.
Yes, the elephant in the room.
Because it's comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't want to disrupt my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go over to my best friend's house and drag him out of the house because I know he's beating his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we're talking about issues that are just as common as racism.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not to steer the conversation. It's the conversation has to start happening. So, by the way, as a quick pause, anybody who's watching this, go down and hit the share button. Create a watch party if you're on Facebook so that your friends can see that you're watching this. It's okay. You don't have to do it. No one's going to judge you. Throw it out there. Let them see, because we need as many people to see this, because this conversation needs to be heard. So anyway, so it's that silence of we don't talk about it. I don't know how it was for you in your home or how it was to be a Black guy. I'd love to hear it.
So here's the thing. I think in Black homes, you're told when you're born, you're given these, don't do these types of things, or you can find yourself dead. You know, one of the things.
What are some of those for white people watching who've never had this conversation with Black people? What are some of those things that you've heard personally?
Yeah. So growing up, the first thing you knew is, and I'm 46 years old. My father is 73. So we're going back to really early 70s.
I'm 40.
You're getting close to me. And look, both of us are losing our hair. That's age.
That's kids.
But first thing you're told is get home before it's nighttime. If you're a kid, now I'm not talking about you're an adult, you drive, but mom and dad was always like, when that sun sets, son, you need to be in the house. And most Black kids of my age, or maybe even a generation right below me, the thing is when the street lights start to dim and go down, you better be in that house. Because you just didn't know what would happen if you were growing up in the South. The other thing was, don't get too happy and friendly with white women.
Yep. There's
a price to pay for you getting too happy and too friendly with white women. That was something that you just did not do. And here's the next thing. When you go into a store, keep your hands to the side. Don't put your hand in the pocket. Don't be touching nothing on the shelves. Don't give any impression that you might be stealing something.
Yep.
And so those were some of the big things that growing up that you kind of knew.
What did you think about? Was it just something that you didn't think about as a kid?
So you were told these things. You go into the store, you with mom say, hey, look, don't do. And here's the thing: some things that you heard them say that they weren't directly telling you, but over time, as you got to see the world in different lens, you start to say, oh, that's why mama told me that. You know, that's why daddy told me, hey, when you first got your license, when you're driving around, son, drive the speed limit. Don't drive too slow. Don't drive too fast. Put your hand on the steering wheel if you got pulled over. You know, some of the things you just kind of learned that inherently over time, it just came natural to you. And I like what you said about the conversation, about uncomfortable conversation, because I do believe this, and this isn't fact, Shane, but I believe this. I believe there's people on the right side, and I'm going to call the right side Black.
Sure, yes.
I'm going to call the left side white. And the reason I'm doing that because the right is normally Republicans and the left is
yeah.
I do believe that there are some people on both sides that they're just racist to the core. There's nothing the conversation is going to do to them. They just hate the other side. That's on both ends. But I think that the bigger middle carries these inherent biases because no conversation has been done. And what I mean by conversation is, you talked about that bubble a little bit earlier. I've never been around a Black person, so I don't know what to say. We had this conversation. What do I say around a Black person? Trust me, when you've been around a Black person, you will know what to say and what not to say.
Of course.
And that goes with the Black people as well. When I first went into corporate America and I was working as an analyst at a big insurance company, and I got hired, I think I might have been I was the fourth only Black people in that department. It was about 100 people in the analyst department. And I had the roughest time not doing the work. I got a master's degree. I'd studied at one of the top schools in the country. I understood what I was doing, but I found it more difficult that when we weren't talking business, we were sitting in the office and we went past the analytical approach and we started talking about what are you doing this weekend? And I started hearing what my white business friends were doing and what I was doing. It was two different things. And I'm like, well, what if I tell them I'm playing basketball this weekend? Is that going to be seen too beneath me as they're going to do, more higher educated types things on the weekend?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that middle of us that has these inherent biases because we have not had the conversation. I feel like if we are put into the conversation, things will change.
Absolutely.
And so
that's why we're here.
I hope that this is not just the only conversation, that we will have more conversation. If it spurs other people to have conversation, this conversation here, have someone to go in tomorrow to work and say, hey, I heard this little black guy say that I should have a conversation with you. I don't know what to say, but if you walk me through the process,
no doubt,
I promise you, I'll try not to offend you.
No doubt. Yeah, so say that again. I want you to say that again. Say that exact same thing again.
If you would, from this conversation, if you would just get it, the notion that maybe I should just go up to a black person and say, you know what? I want to be your friend. I don't know how to talk to you, but I want to talk to you. I'm going to try my best not to offend you.
Now, how many out of 100 black people might get offended by that?
They won't.
Okay.
So here's the thing. You have, again, that right side and that left side.
Sure.
Because of your skin color, they're going to be offended about everything. But here's the thing, and you can speak to black people the same way.
Wait a second. So you're saying there are racist black people?
There are racist black people.
Okay. All right. Just making sure we're addressing that. All right, good.
And there are two types of racist black people. There are those who are just born and they just have that, they ain't my skin color. They ain't, and I'm Southern, so I'm going to talk Southern. They ain't my skin color, so I don't like them. And then you have those that understand our past, and it is a rough past, Shane. If you were to read what has happened to my skin color over the years, there are those who just can't get past that. It doesn't matter about what injustice going on today. They can't get past what happened in the past.
So I don't want to lose that point. So you're saying that there are some people who are and listen, this is the case for either side. Yeah. I believe there are some people who are environmentally ignorant to people of other color. But what you're also saying is, and I also believe this can go both ways on the other side for white people, but you're saying, and I want to make sure that I understand, you're saying there are some people who are black who are racist because of there's a mental education that's happened, or a fear, or a visual. I mean, let's be honest. If your family is constantly treated a certain way and you've seen it, then you're going to naturally have a negative connotation about a person who looks like that.
Exactly.
Right? It would be like, if so I'm going to give you an example. So this is I think this is a great example.
Okay.
So in working with international kids, very early on, I worked with some kids in Serbia, and I will never forget this. Right. Okay. I got a phone call one day. It was a mom. We had helped her son get a scholarship. He was going to school. And she said, Shane, I really need to talk to you. It's urgent. He just got to the school, because what a lot of people don't realize is international kids, most international athletes, when they come over here and they go to school, they've never met the college. They've never met the coach before in their life. So they're coming over here for the pursuit of the American dream, and I'm going to be safe. They're entrusting that this is a safe, comfortable, respectful world and environment they're going to be in. So this kid comes over here and he shows up at a junior college in Atlanta. All right. Now, I'm not going to name the school because the former coach is a good friend of mine, and it wasn't anything negative to them at all. And I'm pretty sure I've told him this story. But the mom called and said, Shane, he just got to school and he's scared. You know, and I was like, well, like we tried to explain to him what he was going into, but so I said, what's the problem? And she goes, well, his coach is black. And I said, so I immediately get defensive. I'm like, wait a second, I know the guy. Like I'm getting ready to tell this lady off. I mean, as I'm getting ready to like really like stonewall her, like, look, lady, no, like that ain't that you've called the wrong one today. Like today, not it. So she says, we have no black people here in Serbia. Immediately, I was like, wait a second. He doesn't. And I said, okay. I said, so what is the concern? And she goes, well, he's uncomfortable, but I'm scared. And I said, why? And she said, Shane, the only thing we know about black people is the movie Friday. In my mind, I'm thinking, man, she thinks Debo is here with her son, and Big Worm is like, you know, walking around the corner. Like, you know, she doesn't, Craig is like running around like that. So I had to, like, I literally like had to sit down and have a really long, expensive international phone call with this lady, like sending her to like different things of like, you like, but that's her only perception. Right. So she was racist. But she was a little bit, I mean, like, again, we can look and say racist prejudice, you know, what, you know, there's, you know, that blends into each other sometimes. And, you know, it's hard to tell, but her fear of someone of another color came from lack of just where God decided to create her and put her, and she had no choice. Now, if she would have talked to the wrong black person, that could have become a major issue. Right. Because because I almost snapped. I was like, look, lady, like, nah, like, so what, I guess what I'm getting to, and not to get off and take away from what you were talking about, but that racism comes the same way in America. If a white guy lives in the middle of, I'm not going to use the stereotypical state. So we'll say Wyoming. He lives in the middle of nowhere of Wyoming and has never seen a black guy, you know. Now, I mean, I guess Kanye's moving his studio and stuff out there. So yes. But he's never seen a black guy, and he decides to go to college in Tallahassee. Right? He's going to show up. He's going to get off the plane, and he's going to see black people, and they're going to be there. His the pilot flying the plane might be black. So all of a sudden now it's like, wait a second, right? Like, whoa, how do I deal with this? So it's understandable on both sides.
So this thing takes some work. And here's the thing. Throughout my life, when I've decided I'm going to start a business, or, you know, I'm going to try to get back in shape, or, you know, whatever it may be, I've always been the type of person that I'm just not going to jump in and just do it. I'm going to put some work in. I'm going to go study. I'm going to investigate. I'm going to investigate. I'm going to learn. This race thing takes some work from both sides. And the work I'm talking about is just what you just mentioned. We're going to be from places. We're going to be from backgrounds that does not equip us, prepare us to be able to deal with the other race. And for instance, and just so we can keep this so transparent so everybody understands.
Absolutely.
Middle America, you're not seeing a boatload of black people. So the first thing that you realize or think about a black person is what CNN, MSNBC, and Fox will show you. And so all of a sudden, every black person
and all of those have their own agenda, and they're only showing to the major majority people who watch their TV show to watch their ads, so they continue generating money. That's it. On both sides, on all sides.
All of that.
Cool. Just making sure that we clear that up for everybody, black and white, watching.
All of that is going on. And so when I live in Middle America, and the only thing I know is my white friends, because there's only one black guy in town, and he doesn't come home and eat with me. You know, I see I see John over there. Hey, John, how you doing? And I don't know anything. It's gonna take some work for me to understand the Black race, and with sincerity and honesty, from a Christian standpoint, I'm speaking biblical now. We should all put that work in. It's gonna take something from me to understand how the person in Nebraska feels when immigrants are coming in over the border. It takes some work for me to understand that. And the work I have to put in has to be a sincere and honest work. The work is not sitting in front of TV, Fox, MSN, and CNN, and saying, "Well, they told me what I need to know. I wrote all my notes down." It takes some work, and that work sometimes. I keep going back, and I'm just promoting the title.
No, you're good.
It takes some conversation.
So how? So if you so let's use your example of you started in corporate America.
Yes.
Right. You started in corporate America, and there were white guys there that something about you found intriguing to want to engage with as a man. Right. Let's just take color aside with it. But you didn't know how, and you were cautious because of your upbringing. So were any of those guys racist, or did they not have the comfort level of know what to say either?
So that's a two-part question. So first,
I figured
I had to feed my family.
Yep.
So I understand that in corporate America, if I can't get along with everybody, if I'm the awkward guy who comes to work, does my job, and go home, I can't advance. So I put in the work to get to know people. I went to awkward meetings and awkward, what do you call those things? Awkward,
like the get-togethers and
get together.
Did you ever at any of those? Did you ever hear something that? Did you ever hear something that was a bit off color and you have to not say anything?
All the time.
Yep.
Even to this day. So I am the Black guy that tries to deal with everything more politically.
I'm not a white guy who doesn't deal with things.
I know. That's why I say we're so like each other. And look, the colors is from my stereotypical
correct.
Yes. We're
getting loud. Yes. All that. Yeah.
So I had to put in work because I had to spend time with them to understand how to interact with them. And what I found out is because I did some work. Sometimes you can't expect other people to do the work for you. I'm the minority at the job. I don't expect everyone to change who they are so that Alex Hyde can be, he can feel good about where he's at. I decided I was going to put in the extra time after work. The happy hour is what I was looking for. The happy hour.
Yeah.
I wasn't drinking, but they sell 7-Up and all that stuff too at the bar.
Sure.
But what I found after putting in the work was that putting in the work isn't always easy. There was some off-color jokes. There was some stuff that they talked about coming up through high school that I never experienced. It was kind of like, I don't get that. But I knew that for me to become a better person, not just to feed my family, but for me to become a better person and understand other people, I have to put in work. Now, let me just tell you this. White people can put in some work too. Ask me how.
How?
When you're in Middle America and there is nobody but John, there is books. I would advise every white person
This is good.
Watch the movie Roots.
Okay.
Watch the movie Roots.
Yep. Why?
You will watching the movie Roots gives you an understanding of what the Black, African American, what you want to call it, what the race has had to endure.
So the first, so not to cut you off, and I'll definitely let you go back to it. The first racially themed movie that I can ever recall watching was Mississippi Burning.
Ooh, okay, good one too. That's a good one too.
Now that'll have you in your feelings and have you, that'll have you needing to go outside and take a breath, take a breather.
Take 2 breathers.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I would advise, because Mississippi Burning,
Roots.
talks about a particular time,
Yeah.
history for Black people, and then Roots talks about that beginning of
whole history.
time here in America. So I think both of those together gives you an idea. Now, here's the thing with these shows, these movies. It's not going to be easy to watch them, because what you're going to say is, "No, that didn't happen." You're going to see things that happen, and to be honest with you, these two movies don't really tell it all.
Mm-mm.
There are some books that really go into how the Black man in America was treated, but at least it'll give you some type of background of what Black people actually went through.
So I also recommend, and I actually shared it because it's relevant because of the date and when it happened. But I also shared that I think, because one of the things that sometimes get lost in translation, at least from my perception as a white guy and hearing other white people talk about it, is, well, racism was a long time ago, right? Or lynching was a long time ago, right? Or they've not hung Black people for a long time, right? So I share something, and I tell people that they should, and just because because the enormity of it is
it's very enormous, Shane. So there's
it's the Black Wall Street.
Oh man, that's rough. That's rough.
Because what also doesn't get told in a lot of the history of Black Wall Street is white American people used military planes and dropped bombs on American citizens.
Right.
On American citizens.
Right. And it was just
that's really hard for a wholesome Christian white person who maybe isn't actively racist to hear.
It's very hard to hear. And that's why I go back to say there are people on the right and the left side that just conversation will do nothing for them. They're racist. But I really believe when we have these type of conversations and we can understand each other's history. So I understand your history.
Well, you're fed it as soon as you enter the education system.
First grade, I'm learning about Christopher Columbus.
Well, let's not listen. I could care. That dude raped and pillaged, and history has now told us that he's not who he says he was.
Yes. So I understand your history.
Yep.
But if you understood mine, you will understand, and I'm not a guy with rage, but you'll understand where some people still have the rage. And yes, 100 and 200 years ago, those things happen. But here's the thing. There's two things that happen when you go through history, you go through a past.
Yep.
It makes your self-esteem go down.
Why?
So when you've been told for 200 years that you shouldn't be learning how to read, when you're punished because you might have spoken good grammar, and you're like, where did you learn that from? This happened during slavery time. Or you learn how to read just the first sentence of a book, nothing big. You were beat. That was a law. You could not learn how to read. And when you have a history, Shane, of that, not just grandma, but great grandma, great grandma, great, all this comes up. And then no one in your family, when you start getting into modern time, nobody in your family has an education. And now you're the first to graduate. And now you have to face America, where everything is so competitive and you don't have a history of success. Your family.
This is good. This is good. And it's actually one of the questions that I got is Black people have the same opportunity. I came from a bad neighborhood and I'm white and none of my family is educated and none of my family has an education. They have the same opportunity I do. This is what he's talking about, is speaking to you. If you believe that, and this is what he's speaking of, because there is a psychological aspect of, let's be honest, and maybe, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but there's a form of psychological slavery that happens just because of history.
Yes. So part of what he's saying is actually correct. Everyone has, for the most part, the same opportunity. Whether or not that opportunity, in music business, they say opportunity presents itself.
Sure.
Whether that opportunity actually lands on you and you get that job, or you get invited to that prestigious school, that's another thing.
But
I can't tell you.
But don't. So, but that's so what you're saying is true,
Mhm.
but I can tell you from my own experiences and talking to people and knowing people at universities, knowing people who hire people who are racist.
Mhm.
Black people don't get the same opportunity, and black people do not get the fair shake.
Well,
I'm gonna give you an example. I got a
uh-huh.
friend of mine who hires and has hired and worked in different jobs and hired a lot of people. I don't think he is what I would call a hardcore racist. I think he has some racial tendencies.
Mhm.
When he looks at an application, he sees the name
Mhm.
and he sees a 21st, 20th century African American with
Mhm. Khalid Muhammad.
or I'm not going to use them because it'll come off in a, but you know what I'm saying.
I
You
know
know
what
where
you're
I'm going. I'm not going to be offensive and use a stereotype, but a name that is taken on a more ethnic centered spelling and these different things, right?
saying. Mhm.
So he immediately devalues that person in his head because he thinks that because of their name is spelled a certain way or pronounced a certain way or misspelled a certain way, like there's no right or wrong way to do it, but in his mind, that's what he's created. Well,
So Shane, I
but
have, and I
go ahead.
can't say this with any fact, but you kind of know what you went
It's
through.
experience. Everything we're speaking on is experience.
I can't tell you how many jobs I've applied for and knew that I was overqualified for and did not get the job. Just got, hey, thank you, apply again. I can't tell you how many promotions that I knew I should have got the promotion. And I just didn't get it. You know, Alex is a nice guy. Okay, just stay where you are. I can't tell you how many of those opportunities passed me by that if I had to make a guess and I had to put all my money and my mortgage up on it, I would say that it was because I was black. Because there was no other reason why I shouldn't have got the job or no other reason why I should not have been promoted.
I mean,
But here was the
we're talking about labeling names, you have a more white name than I do, Alex Todd. Like,
so
yeah.
interesting enough, I can get to whenever I'm looking for a job, I can get to the interview once they see
Oh, I
my
guarantee you. So I've got a story the other side with me about how all this. Go ahead.
I can get to the interview. That's never a problem. I get to the interview and I do great because I got charisma. My father's a pastor. I've been speak for the people. I get to the interview. I can do great in the interview, but the what we like to call the acceptance rate, it's different. And then there's instances where you go back and you say, well, who did you guys hire? Oh, and you find out and like, what'd you promote that guy for? He barely has it. He doesn't know what he's doing. Or you get this, we decided we weren't going to hire for this position. And then you find out later, yeah, they did hire for this position.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, why'd you just tell me? Well, maybe you couldn't tell me because you didn't have any reason for not hiring me. You get those things in life. And what happens is at the time, you start getting like that pot I was telling you about. It starts to simmer and it starts to boil. And not just in jobs.
Because did you see that in your home? Did you see your parents go through that?
So here's the thing. I did not see it as much in my home because my father was a minister and the faith, our denomination, of course, is white and black, but we're still so segregated in the church. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to have that one too. Absolutely.
You got the Black Baptist in the city and you got the white Baptist church.
Yeah.
And so I never had to see it with Dad because he was employed through the Black Conference.
Yeah. So
I never saw that. But what I did see when we went to go get mortgages, Dad, great credit, great job. You know, that check comes every month on the 15th for the conference. He can't get a mortgage. You know, I used to see it when
Did you see his frustration? Did you ever hear his frustration or see his frustration?
So interesting about it, my dad is a very calm man, but I would hear him late at night because I was a nosy kid. I would hear him late at night with mother talking about it. You know, and they talk about it. And my mother and father, they just talk for hours. And I would sit there at their door and just listen to them talk about, I should have got that mortgage. Or my Uncle Bobby just got pulled over in Fayetteville. He was in the Army. He got pulled over in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And they made him go through all the sobriety tests. He doesn't drink, blah, 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 blah. Like all this. And you get all this stuff coming. And I'm talking about in a more modern acceptance of race society. Think about the people, my father and them who went through the Jim Crow days.
Yeah.
Think about my grandmother who couldn't drink from a water fountain. So when we were talking about earlier about there are some people that because of the past, they're just going to inherently be racist. From a biblical and Christian perspective, I know they need to get past that, speaking biblical, to make it into heaven. But I understand it's just like this, Shane. If I bully you every day, you're bigger than me, but if I bully you every day, I smack you, I beat you for no reason at all, you're going to bring your children up and say, don't hang around with Alex Todd.
Yep. Or he that looks like a guy that used to do this to me. Don't hang around that person.
Don't hang around him. And so over time, when all these things happen to you, or you educate yourself to understand how things and the systems in America have not played in your benefit, it makes people, when they have the opportunity, shy away from it because right or wrong, they believe I'm not going to be successful anyway. So why should I put in the time? Why should I go to college? Why should I do this? Because they feel like, I can't make it. And that's on both sides. The guy who had the question, that's on both sides. You have people that are growing up in poverty. It's on both sides to be able to lift your bootstrap and get out of your povertized situation. But there's something.
I get that. I get that a lot. When this discussion comes up with white people and they talk, well, Shane, what about your background? You come from nothing. You don't hardly have an education. What about you? What about you? Now, again, I go in and try to educate, but you were talking about you get to the interview. So a funny thing happened the other day here in my house. So my 13-year-old son hasn't lived with me full time until starting in around Christmas time. So he moved up here to live with us to kind of finish out his school and that kind of thing. Going through teenage years and need to be around your dad for there's certain things he's needs to learn, that kind of thing. So me and his mom have a great relationship. It's all good. It is what it is.
Okay.
Well, he plays video games a lot, sitting here across from me while I'm sitting here working and talking to some of my friends, right? And he kind of made a comment to me the other day, and he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "One of my friends." He's like, "They asked me like, is your dad black?" Because they've never seen me from where so they're hearing me talk. So I had to have a conversation with him about, well, yeah, it would surprise you on how many times I'll have a phone call with someone in business first, and then they find out I'll show up for the lunch meeting and they're not expecting me to walk up to come sit down. And they're like, man, I'm gonna be honest, this is gonna be a little bit awkward, but I didn't know you were white. I didn't know. Now, I don't look at it as I am who I am. I grew up, the first CD I ever bought was Tupac, Me Against the World. I grew up loving Michael Jordan and the Fab Five as an athlete, like all these different, Shaq was my guy, Sean Kemp was my guy. Like I've never that's just who I am, right? Like I don't like you are like hip hop has now influenced the world in so many different ways that, those things aren't nearly as prevalent, now. But so I understand that part of it. So I want to get to a couple of these questions because I think they're relevant.
Okay.
And again, these aren't my views. These are questions that I've come up with. These aren't, Alex's questions. These are questions that I have outsourced through other white people who I have said, if you're afraid to say something, or if there's something about race or black people that you are uncomfortable about, or you don't know, or you would like addressed so you can get an understanding, then that's what I want you to do. The biggest one.
Okay.
The biggest one. I got told this. Okay. Shane, I got told this by a white person.
Okay.
Shane, you're talking too much about race. You need to take a step back. Racism is a black person's problem, and you can't fix it. For example, Martin Luther King. Now I'm gonna tell you what my response is.
Okay. My
response is racism is not a black person's problem. There's not a I'm going to say this because it is a little bit it's going to incite some things, but I'm doing it on
Get it
purpose.
out, man. With conversation.
There's only one person of color that can there's only one person of color that can fix racism, and his name is Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's a person of color. Let's not forget that. Then let's not, he's not the white, long hair, brown hair guy. Like let's be honest. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's not up. We're not going to debate that and get into all that.
Yes.
Outside of Jesus showing up, I don't know that there's a black person around that's going to fix racism.
Mm-hmm.
The only people that can fix racism are the people that look like me,
mm-hmm.
that are willing to have a conversation and call out the uncle at dinner, call out their buddy at the bar making an off-color joke, addressing the coworker when he says something in the break room about Alex Todd, who was just in here.
Mm-hmm.
That's how racism get fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard, because the only other way for it to get fixed is some of what we're dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't address it, eventually, like you said, if you hit, let's also address you bullying me.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people that if you bully continuously, eventually they hit back.
Mm-hmm.
And I am one of those. If you hit me, I can assure you that if I didn't think it was an accident the first time, and listen, we've had a lot of conversations. You've heard about different scenarios in the music business. I'm not here to portray myself any other than I'm as real as what you see is what you get. I can go walk on the west end of Detroit where there are no white people and be comfortable. I can go down to where Troy is from in Opelika, Florida, and walk around, and I'm comfortable. I can walk around in Podunk City, wherever. I can go sit in the boardroom or go sit with the board of the Kentucky Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame, where there's not much color in there. And I can go sit there and speak and carry weight and have a conversation. Now, I'm blessed that I've lived the life and the diverse life, but I've never met a black person that can help correct, because you've tried.
Yes.
For years and years and years, you've been trying.
Yes.
So I'll let you chime in. That's how I address that.
So let me get biblical again. I know biblical things aren't always
okay. Don't apologize. Don't apologize.
The Bible speaks about that we'll always have the poor around us. I think Jesus himself said that. Racism will always be around. It's not going anywhere. And this is why I appreciate you so much. But what we can do is try to fix ourselves and those that are around us. Yeah, there's going to be some that you can't tell them nothing, and they're just going to still have that racism in their heart. But what we're hoping is to change the world, change our community, change our environment, to even change our city, and possibly even just change our nation to where we'll have one less racist person in this world. And doing that, maybe we change the cop that doesn't step on Floyd's neck. Maybe we change the ex-cop and his son decide not to shoot Ahmaud Arbery. Maybe we change Dylan Roof where he doesn't want to go in and shoot up 9 people in South Carolina in a church. Jesus always had an approach of, I'm just going to reach out and touch that one person that's in my vicinity. And that's what we're called to do. We're not called to change the entire world, because if God wanted to do that, Jesus wanted to do that, he could do that. But we're called to change things that we can change. And that's why I appreciate you so much. And I always tell you, I watch you from afar, is that you're willing to sacrifice your name, sacrifice what you look like, sacrifice your time in fighting not only just prejudice, but I see you fighting injustices. And that's what.
What do you mean? What do you mean that I'm risking those things? As a black person, what do you mean when you say that? So I know what you mean.
So black people have, and I should have mentioned this, black people have also this understanding there are places you should not go. And if you go there, and I'm speaking more on a broad scheme, if you go there, you're going to probably encounter a racist. Kentucky is high on that list.
Absolutely.
Georgia,
Absolutely.
South Carolina, I've lived in Alabama. These are places high on the list. For a white man in Kentucky to speak so fervently against the church and its sins, not just racial sins, but the church and its sins. I've seen you do that. The injustices in our society, and then now more prevalent on race. That is a risky scenario because
what am I risking?
Found, even in the black race, when you have people that are racist and you speak, I'm the black guy, and I say, man, let's love on the white people. Racist black people ain't gonna like that. And I know racist white people aren't gonna like it. You're risking the Hall of Fame in Kentucky.
So what am I? Yeah, okay. So, to that point.
Because you are doing something that it goes against the norm. You're speaking out. And look, I'm not saying going to the norm of race. I'm saying speaking out. People hate to speak out. People feel like that's their problem. And you said it earlier. That's their problem. It has nothing to do with me. Minding my own business. And here's the thing is that in the 60s, what ultimately got black people some freedoms, was white people decided, you know what? Just one white people. I'm going to get on that bus and go down to Alabama. I'm going to risk my life. Some of them died doing that. That was a risk. Some of them, when they came back home, the community didn't accept them no more. You went down there with them freedom riders. That was a risk. But that was ultimately what got me the ability today to be able to drink from the same water fountain as you drink from, to be able to go in and sit down at the counter at a booth and eat at Ruby Tuesday, just like you.
Yep.
To be able to have some freedoms. And true, things have gotten much better, because I know that I hear that a lot. Well, ain't it better for y'all now? Yes, things have gotten better. Praise God. But there's still some. So
when you say risk,
yes,
I'm gonna speak it in white people's terms, and maybe they don't understand, and maybe they do.
Yes.
A lot of white people don't speak up because they're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't a political thing, but I'm going to use, let's call a spade a spade. It is what it is, however you want to word it. Our president, his moral standing and the fraudulent curtain that he hides behind causes some people to say, well, I don't agree with that in their head. White people. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Their pastor has never rebuked it or denounced the hatred that comes out of his mouth. So they think that it's acceptable, or they think if I say something, then, oh man, the people at church, because I don't know if they believe like me, because they're not saying something. And if they don't believe like me, man, I really love my church family, and I really love it here. My kids, like it's great. They go to school at the church school here, and it's great. I don't want to ruin that. Or my friends, they don't really like. I might lose my friends, or my family. My grandmother might not talk to me, or my granny was racist. She used the image. She was terrified of black people. Mm-hmm. Terrified, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I knew now. She passed away before I could get to the knowledgeable place that I am today. But I would check her right now. Mm-hmm. Granny, cut it out. Like, let's have a conversation. I know where it comes from. Yeah. But it doesn't make it right. Right. So that's what he says when he says, I'm risking something. I'm going to say it. What I'm risking is the privilege that I have that a person of color doesn't have. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm risking it. Now, here's why I don't, because I'm sure that's in your head, and I'm sure you've thought it, man, why is Shane shit? He's like, man, this dude, like, he just doesn't care. Like, he's like going in, guns blazing, like it doesn't matter. He's not going and like seeing who's the operative there. Like, he just goes, right? So for me, I experienced things growing up. And when you experience trauma, when you experience things from your parents that you're not supposed to experience as a child, it either breaks you or it teaches you. Mm-hmm. And I was blessed enough, and I don't know why. I don't know why God gave me the common sense or the sensibility to understand or those things, but I learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
So as I learned from it, I learned that your words, I don't if the people that are closest to me can't give me the love and compassion verbally that I so seek and desire as a young influential kid, I can't expect that from anybody. Right? So I have been called more racist terms by white people than I ever have by black people. I have had 2 incidences playing basketball. I was after high school in 2005, I played at the park. I was 25. It was kind of my last hurrah. I didn't lose a game all summer. Vito, who you were talking about from the Nappy Roots, he's a good friend of mine. He and I would play at the park all the time, play together. He's like me, very outspoken, loud, aggressive. We're both big guys. We physically dominated the park, right? In an area where basketball is really good.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I would talk trash. I'd take your basketball and tell you go home. We're gonna keep it. You lost. You don't deserve to play with it anymore. Right?
That's not Christian.
We're different. We're the same, but we're different. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying so. There were 2 instances that I have of black guys who didn't know me, who just saw me as a loud, outspoken white guy out here just talking trash and winning. And after the game, in between games, you get your water and then you get ready for who's up next, and you go, man, I can't believe y'all let him out here like that, man. He's out here using the N-word and this. Now, keep in mind, I've never used the N-word in my life. There's not a friend that can no rap song. I'll just not sing it. I just go past it. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable when black people use it around me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I've just never been comfortable with the word. I don't know why. So, oh man, no, he wasn't, man. He's out there using this, that, and he's saying this, that, and the third. Well, immediately the whole environment changes for them because these people out here know me. I've grown up out here. They know me. So now all of a sudden it becomes you're not welcome here because we see what you're trying to do. Right. And I've heard it from white people because I have black friends or because, Shane, of how you use your words. Right. And I'm not going to use the words because they're offensive and I'm not here to make it to glorify any of it. Right. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, message me and I'll give you some words you can research. If you don't know, if you're that out of touch as a white person or as a black person, if you're that out of touch, reach out and I'll help you and I'll teach you with that. But in that that's what I'm risking. Now, I actually believe, so you talk about, the emerging entrepreneur with the Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame. I was told, now not necessarily because of my race and not of anything else, if you don't change some things, you're not going to be accepted into that person wasn't saying they were the gatekeeper. They were saying the people in general who are in this society are not going to accept you unless you change some things. Now, I'll be frank. I told them, they can kiss my ass. I'm going to be exactly who I am. So, Shane, you show up and you wear a hoodie all the time and your Jordans. You're not wearing a shirt and tie. Like you can't be posting about these current events and calling you can't be doing that. Like it sends the wrong message and this, all that makes me want to do is go do it more. I'm going to go because this is what, and I don't know why I have this. I can't articulate it well, but I have something in me that thrives off of you telling me no. So essentially that's what you're telling me. If you don't conform like us, you don't get to come to the party.
Yeah, basically.
So when I got the phone call that said, hey, we'd like your invitation. I was in Australia. I was sleeping in the middle of the night. Actually, I was in New Zealand. I was sleeping in the middle of the night in New Zealand. Hey, what's going on? Are you up? No, it's 4:00 in the morning. Oh, well, I'll call back. Well, no, let's go ahead and talk about it now because I'm already up. And to go through this, it was such I don't even it's just it's up here. The award's up here. It's not a big deal to me. But inside, it's a big deal because I proved I don't have to play by your rules.
Yeah.
I don't have to play by your rules. So when you say that I'm risking something, I wanted to add some context because that's what white privilege is. That's actually probably a better definition than explaining it the other way.
Yeah.
By me speaking up and being vocal, you and I have had some conversations where I've called you and I've been like, hey, this just happened.
Yeah.
Like, help educate me.
Yeah.
Because I'm about to absolutely unload on this situation.
Yeah. No, we've had those conversations. And I've tried to the best of my ability when we kind of talk about it to give you, my view, because again, and I'm going to keep saying this until the cows come in. The conversations are what's needed, folks, because you said something about your grandmother. And I believe this, and I've had conversations with my father about this. I believe that, and I'm speaking again to white people because I'm speaking to white people, and you speak to black people. I believe that white people are afraid of black people. You said your grandmother was afraid. And I believe that when you look at a lot of what's happening with the police murders, I tend to believe that black people aren't given the time to get themselves together, to restrain themselves, to let their cooler head calm down. I think police are jumping a little bit. Not all police. Again, if it was all police, I wouldn't be here. But you have some bad apples. I believe that a lot of the decisions that cops have made in regards to killing black people when it was unwarranted has been because I'm afraid.
Yep.
And I don't want to. If I don't get him out the way, he's gonna take my gun. He's gonna beat me down. And I don't want us to be afraid of each other, because when we're afraid of each other, that's when there is no conversation.
Do you know that majority of white people would be terrified to come on here and Facebook live stream to the world something that's permanent and lives forever, to have a conversation about race with a black pastor?
Oh, they're afraid. And look, this goes back to slavery. Slave owners didn't want, and this is not just physical, it's all the way around. Slave owners did not want their slaves to read because they was afraid if they read, they know too much, they'd figure out how to get out of slavery. They didn't allow them
education.
Slavery. They didn't want them to congregate because they all came together. Maybe they find out that there's more slaves on the plantation than a couple of the slave owners, and they will overtake it.
Yes.
And so there were these myths that were put out that black people are big brutes and they will kill you. They rape your wife. They take the white women. They do all this stuff. And what that has done, see, there's a true thing about DNA. It can be good for you. It can be bad for you. If your father is a genius, he went to Harvard, his IQ is great, more than likely his children are going to be genius. If your father was a slave with low IQ, didn't know how to read, more than likely your child isn't going to know how to read.
Because who do we get the largest majority of our real world education comes from our parents in our household.
Exactly.
So if your dad hypothetically was a slave and has never had an education, you're not going to get much one. You might get a little bit more. If you take, go ahead.
My IQ is all jacked up for genealogy down and down and down and generation and generation and generation, because my dad, who had no IQ, all he was master this, master that, and can't hardly speak nothing. When his has his child, his child has his child, his child has his child, and we hadn't learned how to own any property because we stayed on the master's property. So now all of a sudden, America says, I'm going to give you guys some freedoms. And then you're like, just pull yourself up by your bootstrap. We don't understand FICO scores. We don't understand the stock market. We don't understand what you need to get a mortgage. We don't understand none of this stuff. And really, be honest with you, all of these privileges that white people send to say, well, you can get them. You got the same opportunities. We're really just start getting them in the maybe the 70s.
Yeah, so I was gonna say 30 years. I was gonna say 30 years, but yeah.
We just now can go to y'all school.
By the way, I grew up in a poor white home and wasn't taught about FICO scores or the stock market either because of education.
Education.
So if you're not getting it because of your education, but who controls the stock market and the education of these things?
So, and I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna throw this in just one more time.
Yeah.
If my grandmama, my great grandmama, my great great grandmama, my great great great, all them folks had no opportunity, Shane, my DNA is fried. And there's a song, I'm going to go biblical. There's a song called Break Every Chain. Every Christian born believer knows that song. It was hot for 2 years. Tasha Cobb won all types of Dove Awards and Stella Awards. Break Every Chain was about, the song talked about how my parents did something that was terrible. And I'm talking just evil and sin. My parents sinned, I have a addiction. And that for my next of kin, my next generation to break out of it, for them not to do the same thing I done. This biblical for Christians in the Southern Belt, they should know this. For me to not do what my mom and daddy did, it takes a stronger power than myself. It takes the Holy Spirit, it takes Christ. So she's saying, help me to break this chain, Lord. And so it is the same. It ain't just for sin. It's the same in how and what I was taught, what I was allowed to do. And if I never got my 40 acres and a mule, and I was told that I just need to have a little hut over here, and it's DNA. And so, yeah, at some point in time, if America was to say, you know what, we're going to make this, everything is going to be open to all races, at some point in time, African Americans are going to break the chain of slavery, but don't ask African Americans to break the chain of slavery within 30 years when there's 200 years of this DNA put upon, it's fried in me.
So what you're saying is, and again, you're not speaking for the entirety of all black people.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that if a wave of white people decided to stand up and to speak out and to risk in their community the perception and the I mean, lack of a better way of putting it, the bullshit local politics of who likes who, they're willing to risk all that. Black people will be more than welcome to walk next and walk with and walk through and allow white people to keep helping and keep putting that wouldn't be taken effect. It wouldn't be taken. The other comment that I got made was it can be perceived as Shane speaking out, because what I've also done is I've also engaged in comments on other people's threads to where maybe a black friend is having a debate or borderline argument with a person, and I've chimed in to correct that white person and tried to educate, even also offering and saying, listen, I can tell you don't get it, and you're not gonna, like, you going back and forth stating what you think about is only playing into the emotions of the other person. So let's me, I don't know you, but I'll give you my phone number. Let's have a conversation and let me share with you from a white person to white person. Let me share with you some of what I think you're missing. And I've been told, the thing that I was told from a white person was, it can be perceived as, well, look, here goes white Jesus trying to save everything and do everything. Right? Now, again, I've not had one black person. I shared a post 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, that's been shared over 500 times, mostly by black people and mostly by people who have no idea who they are. Somebody shared it in Louisville when stuff happened and it took off, right? I've not had one black person comment to me and say, hey, Shane, you're out of line. You need to shut up and stop talking. This ain't your fight. None of those things have been said, right? But I'm sure, as a matter of fact, I'm not going to say I'm sure. I guarantee you people in my community have seen my posts, and I guarantee racial verbiage, whether they think it's racial or not, have been said about Shane. I'm now labeled myself when I go out into public. I'm going to be wearing my Jordans and my hoodie, and I'm going to be driving my car, and they're going to hear a certain kind of music coming out of my car. They're going to immediately label me something that I'm not. Right. So I just want to again. I'm speaking because I want white people to understand.
So,
I want white people to understand.
So let me say this: we need you, and then let me say this: white people, we need you. The average black person does not hate a white person. I have friends all. I have them all. I have friends that are from the good side of the tracks. I have friends from the bad side of the track. Now, what you see on the social media and what you see sometimes on the news is that angry black person. But we generally want to, as Rodney King said, we generally want to get along. We need you guys, and we need you for two reasons. One reason is that if enough white people do not band together and say enough of all this injustice, enough of killing people, enough of mortgage injustices in the way the bank systems are set up, enough of that. Let's just let everybody have an opportunity, the same opportunity. If enough white people said that, we would get changed. We would get changed. And so we need you for that instance, but we need you because we're all human in mankind. If we're all trying to get to one place, we all need each other to make it there.
So this leads me to the next thing that came up. And this happened when the protesting and stuff happened, right when you could tell the emotions from the black community spilled over, and they had enough, right? Like it's what tipped. Is there was a lot of posts from black people stating that we're at war.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at war. Black people, we are at war, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I know what that means.
Yes.
I know that means that you are at war with racism. It does not mean that you are at war with white people and you're not going to come knocking door to door and raping and pillaging and burning people and killing and hunting white people.
Yeah. So let me stop you. It goes back to what we just talked about a few moments ago, where although you may suck into the old belief that the Africans are bush people and they want to kill, they want to rape people.
They're aggressive and strong. Aggressive. Yeah.
Although you may see on the media at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, they're going to show the local news, and local news is going to show the negative part of any society. The black person don't kill somebody, don't shot somebody, don't rob this store. Look, that's not us. You have to get past your fear of us, because the fact that we communicate different, that fear pushes us and pushes you and pushes me. It pushes us to a huge misunderstanding. And so if you believe that I want to kill you, I'm the angry black guy, you hear war, you're thinking, yeah, they're getting rid of the Black Panthers, the Black Lives Matter, they're about ready to kill everybody. It is reward racism. And if you really sit and watch the protesters and not listen to what Fox has to say, CNN, MSNBC, all the hypes that they put.
Mute the button when the footage is on. Mute the button. Yeah.
But when you see them actually give that mic to somebody who, and I'm not talking about the crazy guy that running down, but you give that mic to the actual protester, they are saying the most eloquent things. We love everybody. And let me tell you, they're not just giving the mic to black people, they're giving it to white people that are out there, Native Americans are out there, Chinese that are out there. And all they're saying is, stop this senseless killing. And can't we all, Rodney King said it perfect, can we all just get along?
So,
we're afraid of each other.
So white people say, well, we're trying to, but you're angry and you're upset and you're out doing these things.
Saying we're not. We're angry at what happens. We're angry. So listen, and I could take issue in civil rights. My civil rights activists take issue because we only show our anger when something happened. 2 weeks from now, everybody back at work. We're not angry.
Okay. So a side note, you're saying that black people have to work on how they articulate and educate and share their feelings just like white people do.
Oh, by far. But here's the thing. There's this inherently some different stuff in us. And that's why I say the conversation has to be had, because when you and I talk, when you say a word that somebody else may not take kindly, I can take it because I know you.
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah.
And so that's why the conversations have to be had, because when we know each other and we understand each other, then when we say war, hey, that means there's an issue with injustice.
Well, when you say that in your mind, you also know, and we talked about the whole bus and the history and white people getting on the bus.
Mhm.
I hope you know that if it comes to that, that you can tell the guy driving the bus, hey, I need you to swing through Kentucky because I got to grab my boy. He's rolling with me, right?
Yeah. And get me some of that Kentucky barbecue too.
Oh, we're gonna get down. Yeah, we're gonna get down. But that's the thing.
Mhm.
It's the conversation that has to be had of why I'm like okay, so I had someone today tell me who I know is not racist. They are
Mhm.
not racist. Shane, my concern is the protesting and all of this stuff that's been going on is taken away, and it's causing white people to say, I just can't deal with this. This is too much. I'm instead of fixing it,
Yes.
right? Instead of stepping up, right? My response to that is that's because they're scared about how is this going to affect me.
Yes. So
Here's the beauty, and this is my view, and I'll let you talk, and I apologize for cutting you off.
okay, go ahead.
Here's my view on it. I don't believe, because I believe America, and I believe you believe this too. This is the greatest country in the world. We have our issues. We are flawed. We got jackasses on both sides of the aisle in politics. We are screwed up in some ways. But at the root of what this is, at the heart of people, this is the greatest country in the world. Doesn't mean we still can't get better. It's the greatest country in the world. Now, that being said, this is the land of opportunity. If I all of a sudden give equal opportunities to black people, that doesn't mean that I have to lose anything. That doesn't mean I have to lose anything. If I give education to the same number of black people that can go to college and get into this university, what about my son?
Doesn't. Because it's the land of opportunity.
That's it. That's it.
How come everybody can't?
If it's equal, we all get the same opportunity to earn it.
Yep. Nobody's
right?
going to take it from you.
Now,
especially when you win.
Yep. So one of the other things is I'm tired. So this isn't my word. These are questions that I gather. I'm tired of having to wonder how my black friends think of me because I'm white.
And I think the black people who have white friends, they're concerned, because I would have those same concerns at work. Do the people really respect me? Are they inviting me just because I'm in the department? It was really rough going to the Christmas picnics and all. It was just really rough. But here's the thing. You said something that was key, my friend. Let's take out the color and say, are my friends really my friends? Not the color. It's about the friends. See, we got to get to the point, as Dr. King says, we got to start judging each other by the heart. And stop generalizing and just individualize.
Yep.
I can come out to Kentucky right now and be honest with you. I mean, unless I met a white person and they just totally just give me a racist feel, and you can sometimes get that feel.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, come on, let's go watch the Kentucky Wildcats. Let's go watch the Louisville Cardinals. We've got to get to a point where of being afraid, and not of it is all being afraid that black people gonna kill me, but just being afraid of just communicating and talking with each other. I like when you call me and say, man, tell me if I'm getting this thing wrong, and we'll talk about it.
Because out of respect as a human, I'm conscious that I don't want to and you and I don't even really have conversations about race. It's more about religion and different perception of I can't. ADHD doesn't allow me to read the Bible, so I can't read the Bible. I'll fall asleep. I'll be thinking about something else over here, and what it ain't gonna. The closest I've ever come to was the Passion of Christ movie. I could sit and watch it. I could see it. I could understand it. Outside of that, like I'm not, you're gonna lose me, right? So I gotta listen and try to understand. It's like my post the other day when I said, there's a lot of people that are talking out against, civil unrest, and we didn't that. So it hit me. It was like 2:00 in the morning. I said, I wonder if Jesus ever committed any civil unrest, right?
Mhm.
So I asked a friend of mine was online. I know his religious education. So I asked, and he sent me some screenshots. And he's like, yeah, actually he did when, he went in and he cleansed the temple on multiple occasions, turned over tables, cracked whips, ran people out. So my question in the post was, is this going to be another one of those things where it was good enough for Jesus to do it,
Mhm.
but we're above it?
So can I talk about the church?
Roll on.
Okay.
Roll on. That's why you're here.
Let me talk about the church. The church, and I'm of the church. So don't get me wrong, but I have to be critical. And here's the thing. We
Accountable.
have to be critical.
Accountable.
Both.
Yes.
Both. We have to be able to sit down and take self-assessment. I do some counseling as well. And I do one of the things I'm pushed to my clients is, hey, look, you have to be able to take a self-assessment of yourself and be very honest with yourself. You have to look in the mirror and be very honest with yourself. And then when you are able to do that, you then figure out a game plan. When the honesty hurts you inside and you see something bad, you then have to set up a game plan to make yourself better. The church has dropped. I have so much to say. Let me try to.
You're good.
So this is the first thing that the church has done. The church is the biggest purveyor of racism.
Black and white.
Black and white.
Okay.
Black and white. Black and white.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you some examples. Black people, if you walk into a white church, we will accept you because we just like accepting this. That's why I don't understand why.
I've been to a predominantly black church. I'll be honest, I was terrified the first time I went in one, but
it's a little exciting and rowdy.
So I went in one, and I can't remember as a kid what it was. A friend of mine, it was a neighbor. Their parents went in, and I went in, and people were talking tongues, and I had never been to church really at all. Yeah. So for me, it was a bit of an out as a kid, not because of the color. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea to engage and interact. I was like, I'm just gonna sit and hang out, and I don't know if I'll ever be back here, but I'll stick it out, right?
Mm-hmm,
so that's my experience.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Some of our churches can be a little bit different if you hadn't been to them. But
white people have them too with snake handling and different things.
I've seen some of that on YouTube.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, just going and giving some history,
please.
When you look back at slavery, the slave masters and America at that time used the Bible to use as a reason for having slaves. And
can you explain? Yeah. Go ahead.
The Bible I know doesn't go, but the church entangles. See, the church is so used to taking the words of the Bible and entangling it to be what we need it to be to lift ourselves up. So that's number one. The church has been one of the biggest purveyors of injustices and slavery because the church allowed itself to be a purveyor of slavery in past because we took the biblical scriptures and made it what we want it to be. That's number one. We'll kick that to the side. I just want to throw that out there.
Sure.
Here's my problem with the church nowadays. We do not speak out. We'll speak out about everything else. But when it comes down to injustices that do not reflect what we want them to be, and that's on the black and white side, we do not take a stand. And I know you were a little bit earlier talking about the members more so, but I fought the leaders because it is the responsibility of
I called out
to lead. And we had a conversation about that. It is the leader's prerogative to lead the congregation because the congregation is there to be led. We call the church on our design or designated days to hear what God has given that leader. And if that leader is not speaking out against injustice, one of the things, the problems that Jesus had when he was on this earth was he had it with the Pharisees. If you really read the scriptures, you understand that his biggest problem with the Pharisees is because they felt like they were better than the Gentiles. The Jews felt like they were better than the Gentiles and the Samaritans. And he told a story about a man that was on the side of the street that had been robbed and beat down, and how all these people went by and had saw him and just kept kicking and kept kicking. And even the priest came by and he just kept kicking. And then it was just one Gentile came by and decided, you know what, I'm going to help him. And he's the guy that Jesus upheld. He's the guy that Jesus lifted up and said, you need to be like him. But it was the church, it was the Pharisees that was so much into the Bible said this, and they were taking the doctrine, they were taking the word, similar to how we did in slavery, and making it seem like, hey, we lifting ourselves up. And Jesus was more pissed off at them than the man who hung on the cross, who had robbed and steal. He was more pissed off at them than the adulterer. He was more pissed off at them, the Christian folks, y'all. He was more pissed off at them than the folks who was committing the sins of the Bible. The do not steal, the do not kill, thou shalt not bear false. He was more pissed off at them because they were taking the book and just shaping it to be what they want to be so that they can lift themselves up. And I think our leaders of today will not speak out against injustice because it's going to then bring them down, because so many people are going to say, Pastor, what you speak about that for?
Yep. What's going to happen? I'm going to lose my job.
I'm not going to be the pastor of that big mega church.
Or my income, because again, I'm going to speak about it in a different way, and I speak about it. Church is a business. Church is a business, right? Now I know you don't pastor like full time, like you have a full-time job and you do, but in a lot of churches, in some churches in your bigger cities or your towns that are getting bigger, the pastors there are full time.
Yes.
The only way they have a job, they pay their bills, are by the people coming and donating money and the people there. The moment you speak a different language than what those people in front of you want to hear, oh boy, we got a problem. Because now all of a sudden, what if I look up? Because what does every church do? Let's call it a spade. And it's not, by the way, this isn't me being negative, condescending. I'm being critical and educating so that we understand why this is necessary. And this isn't an attack on the church at all. For God's sake, I have a pastor on here. So, but what happens after every service? Let's go count every service is counting heads to see who's here. They're then counting the tally of the money brought in. Okay. This also happens at a lot of other businesses. Attendance. How do we get paid? Right. So if all of a sudden if I say something, and I'm not gonna put every pastor in a box, but if there's a pastor out there that doesn't believe this, that is in a church of a decent size where I would love to have a conversation with you about it and to see instances where you're actually speaking up about critical societal injustice and racism. And I'll put you in, I'll put you on outside of this box. But, and I don't know if you saw the video that I shared out. And I can't think of the guy's name right now. He's a white pastor speaking at a black Baptist convention, and he talks, and it's a couple years ago. He's in Houston, I think, or in Dallas. He's got 5 or 6 churches, like big churches and whatever. And he goes up and he's talking about, and it's the best sermon. I'm not gonna say sermon. It is the best version of a white person in leadership position in a church that walked up and said, look, to my white pastors in the room, I know what I'm about to ask you to do, and I know what the consequences are. And it says, if a house that's undivided cannot stand, I think is the name of the name of
divided against its own cannot stand.
So I don't care about the soft dance around And it's not about judgment and it's not about politics. But for me, and maybe it's just my nature and say, well, Shane, everybody's not like you. At some point, you got to look in front. And this is not just pastors. There's a leader in a business, a leader in the community. If you're city council or the mayor or the police chief, at some point, you have to look at your subordinates, your flock, your community and say, if you look like this, if you're doing this, if this is how you're acting, if this is the verbiage you're using, then you've got to change and we're going to force it down your throat or you can leave.
Yeah. So there's a calling that a pastor who has received a calling from the Lord. There's some pastors who get into it because you mentioned something that was so key. There's money that the mega church pastors make. They make a good deal of money.
And I believe that most pastors are in it for the right reason.
That would be my assessment. And here's the thing: it needs to be more than just the right reason. It needs to be a call by God, because this is probably one of the most unappreciated jobs with such a high, such a high responsibility. My father used to always say this when I was coming up. He would say that pastors should have a yearning for souls, that they should be yearning and hurting so much that every time they go out into the community, every time they preach, they're trying to help someone get into heaven. It's almost like a yearning you have for your kid, that you want your kid to live another day. You want your kid to be successful. You should have that yearning for the soul. And stay with me with this. I'm going somewhere with this.
I'm with you.
You should have a yearning for souls. That does not happen to everyone. Everyone doesn't care about others. Most time we care about our immediate family, our immediate friends. To just have a yearning for souls of people you don't know, that takes a special calling from God. God gives that to you. It's what the disciples had after the upper room experience, and when they were given the commission by Jesus to go and tell everyone in the world, spread the gospel. It was a calling from God. So I think there is a higher calling for the pastor than just it's the right thing to do. You need to have that calling. Here's the thing. With that calling, you have to speak to people, and sometimes it's not going to be what they want to hear. It's not going to be the sweet and rosy sermons. And with that calling, it does not mean that you have to be the activist. Maybe God didn't call you to be Frederick Douglass. Maybe God didn't call you to be Martin Luther King. But he does call you to tell the truth. He calls you to tell the truth. And it calls you to call a spade a spade. And when you are called to tell the truth, you did there's something that pastors say that all I'm going to do is tell you the truth, and the Holy Ghost going to do the rest.
Yeah.
It's not.
So I got a friend of mine. I grew up with. He's black, and his dad. And this saying has just stuck with me. And he always used to say, "Look, I'm gonna tell you what God loves, and that's the truth." Like that was his saying of what he said.
There is something to be said about that, because Jesus says, you go out and just fish. I'll put the fish on it. So it is not my responsibility. I don't want to put too much burden on your pastors, but it is my responsibility.
No, so I actually want to flip it. I want to flip it
because let me finish this point.
Most of the people aren't that are going to watch this aren't going to be a pastor, right? What should a white person do?
Well,
that they feel like, okay, I'll be the sacrificial lamb here for everybody, right?
Okay.
I've called you with certain things, and I've come to you and said, man, I've seen this. I don't understand it, or I've seen a lack of this, or this is silent and this person is silent. What should a person do in a church community to address those things? And how do they know what to, because let's be honest.
Okay.
A large majority of people who go to church, they are followers and not leaders. So there are a lot of people who look up either for social status or try to befriend or try to common ground a pastor. of how it may socially gain me in my life, either subconsciously or consciously.
Yeah.
So if I go and challenge this person, we'll take even the pastor out of it. What if it's my dad?
Mm-hmm.
We're told, we're told one and the same. We're told respect your parents, love them to death, no matter what, unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm of the belief that what if it wasn't conditional love coming to you? You get to a point to where that person then now, wait a second, you don't have, we're like, you abused me. I got past it, and then you don't want me to talk about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want me to publicly talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get into that in a whole nother episode. But a lot of people said, well, that's your dad, that's your parents. You should, you gotta, that's your pastor. They know, they went to school. They read the Bible. They talk it every day. You don't know more than they do.
Mm-hmm.
What should a person do when it comes to race?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I realize you're speaking, but I know you can separate the race part out of it and the church thing out of it. Where is it comfortable for a person who's white, who's in a church? Because what I want people to watch and do, it's not that I want people to not believe in their church and not believe in their pastor. Me, all of it is about accountability.
Yes.
When I call people out, I'm calling you out on accountability.
Mm-hmm.
When I directly say, if this, and this, then you need to look at this.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being accountable, right? I hold myself to a higher standard than any other human being that walks this earth. I repeatedly fail myself.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to expect you, if you're going to be, because one thing that's pretty common is most pastors put themselves in a community leader position.
Mm-hmm.
They say that they're involved in the community in different things. For me, the moment you're, again, my opinion, the moment you're, I don't know, maybe I'm missing the word, but moment that you step foot outside the church and you continue doing your preaching or your sermoning or whatever the word that I'm missing for whatever reason is, then you now have a duty, if you're a community leader, to be a community leader. And that means you start having some uncomfortable conversations.
This is true. So I think for church members, and I like to call them pew members, that maybe they don't have an active part in the church.
Sure.
I think your responsibility to any issue first comes from what God has called you to do. I think you need to have a conversation about him. I think too much of our 21st century Christians, we just do these regular prayers. Thank you, Lord, for watching me today. Forgive me for my sins. Amen. And we don't really have a relationship with God. I'm talking about sitting down and, Lord, what would you have me to do? I have something on my mind. I have this issue that I need to know how to address it, not just at home, but at work, at church. The Lord will give you the ability. Everyone is not called to be an activist. Everyone is not called to be as outspoken as you, Shane. Some people, they're just going to live more so in a world of obscurity. But I think in the way the world is with so many issues and problems, you need to speak to God about what would God have you to do. But I will say this, you should not indulge, and here we go with trying to stem the tide of racism. You should not indulge in conversations, in activities, and not speak up. I think one of the things that God and Jesus has always admonished us to do, even if God didn't call you to be a pastor, he calls you to speak up against injustices. And one of the things that the church has done is, and this is all the way down to the pew member, we can speak up against LGBTQ, if I'm saying that correctly. We can speak up real fervently against abortion. We can speak up against murder. But then when it comes down to societal things, that's are equal as wrong, because God said there is no sin that's greater than the others. They're all sin. Then we start to sit back and say, that ain't my job to do. But as soon as someone walks in the church and they kind of, you know, a little shaky, look queer, the church is rallying against that. As soon as we see somebody abortion, we rally against that. But when it comes down to injustice, oh, that ain't my job. Nobody wants to say anything. And so I think we need to seek ourselves and look within ourselves with the inspiration of Jesus. And he will lead and guide you to how vocal you should be, but you should never be silent in the midst of injustice.
Conversation. So I think
that's not disrespectful if you're talking to your fathers. You talked about being respectful to your parents. That's not disrespectful to say to your father, hey, that's not what Jesus will want us to do. That's not right.
Yeah.
It is
even if you're not comfortable with saying what's right or wrong, ask a question.
Ask a question. And
Ask a person, or whoever it is, a parent, why have you not, like, because I've told my friends to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got white friends, it takes two parties. And you know, I had a back and forth with a friend. He's like, well, you know, I kind of feel like that's wrong. You're telling me as a black man that, you know, I got to hit a white man and ask why he's not speaking out. Shouldn't he already be? It takes both sides.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It takes both sides. So you got to say, hey, I'm concerned and you haven't said anything.
Right.
I'm hurting.
Right.
I'm hurting and you haven't said anything.
Right.
I just want to know why. And just right or wrong, I'm not going to get mad at you. I just want to know why.
Right. And Shane, let me take us to another place, because I think the response to people hurting and the perception of black people is that white people don't care when we're hurting. The response is, every time we say we're hurting, the response is, well, you're hurting because you did this. Or you aren't really hurting. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. Instead of saying, tell me why you're hurting. And the response always is, it's a negative response of why you're hurting. And I think that too has caused such a bottleneck of anger in minorities and those of color, because we've been saying for years, hey, they're killing these people when they're driving around. When I drive around, I'm 46 years old. I dress in suits all the time. I drive a Mercedes-Benz. My wife drives a Mercedes-Benz. We're middle class. But when the police gets behind me, y'all, and before they even turn the light on, I don't have no weed in my car, as the stereotype may think. I'm not selling drugs. You know, I don't have a chain on. If you pull me, you can probably see my Bible over there. You might see some of my notes from the last church board meeting. I'm nervous, y'all. And white people have to understand.
But there's some white people that tell you they get nervous too. What's the difference?
Look, I believe it. And look, I should be able to have a conversation, and we should be able to say we both are nervous, and I understand what you're nervous about. But I don't understand that doesn't go over well. Don't go over well. I don't understand why you're nervous. Them cops, they would never do anything to you.
Part of this is also, I wanted to share, and I know you have, and I want to also share experiences of racism that I have experienced as a white man and what I've seen.
Okay.
And one of those is very similar to what you're talking about. And then we'll kind of wrap this up. And I think we probably can already both agree that we need to do this again. Yeah. And even potentially even maybe find some guests to come on and talk about some different things. So we can do that. So I played a year of junior college basketball over in Eastern Kentucky. Okay. And the jokes, as a white person, I'm going to say the jokes that are made about Kentucky, that's where they originate from. Right? So I'm going to bite the bullet on that. Right.
Bite the bullet, man.
So I can remember now, I was also one of 3 or 4 white guys on the team in a town from a place that's near a place called Hazard, Kentucky. Woo, right. Okay. To where the first day of school, we all check in, and there was a grocery store in town, only one. We go to get groceries, and we walk in and grab a cart, and I'm with 4 or 5 other black guys. And the lady comes over the intercom and says, well, guys, it looks like school's back. The colored boys are here. Like, I'm hearing that, and I'm thinking, like, I'm uncomfortable because I also know, listen, this is 1998. I also know that, like, I'm thinking the worst, like, I might get killed, like, just for being over here.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so, you know, in that, so I'm painting a picture of where it is. And I've got other stories of that experience. So we would come home. So there was 4 of us from the same hometown that all went to the same school.
Okay.
I was the only white guy. So I can remember a friend of mine, he was driving, right? He was driving us home. He had a car. We were driving home. And you have to go through some, like, nothing but white population, poor. Not all of it is racial, but is definitely racism and KKK and, you know, why are you here? And, you know, words, racial terms that I would say most black and white people have never heard if you're under 20 years old. Right. And we got pulled over. We get pulled over. I'm sitting in the back seat. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Everybody in the car kind of gets uncomfortable, except the driver. Now, he had maybe an Oldsmobile or whatever. It had like the bench seat up front, but like it was a divider. He kept his wallet underneath the front seat. So there's 2 cops in the car. We get pulled over, and I'm looking, and I'm nervous because I've got these preconceived notions of there's black guys in the car. We're in a town where there are no, we're in the mountains. There's no there's no black people. Okay. Oh man. Like what? No, nobody did drugs. Nobody did anything illegal. I wasn't concerned about what was happening there, but I said, oh man, what's going to happen? And out of the corner of my eye, I look and I see a cop coming down. He's got his hand on his holster. And I'm thinking, what we weren't even going that fast. Like, why? What's happening here? And I happened to see something moving out of the other eye, and I see another cop walking up. So I could see him coming to the car. All of a sudden, the guy driving, I'm not going to use his name, but all of a sudden in the car, somebody says, have your license ready? Well, in a normal reaction, he reaches underneath the car to grab, like there was like the oxygen got sucked out of the inside of the car. Now, maybe white people don't necessarily understand this feeling, but I can assure you there was a feeling amongst at least 3 of us in that car that if one of these guys is of the extreme
trouble,
all he's got to say is, well, you see who's in the car, and he reached underneath the car seat, and it's justified. That is the truth. It's he say, she say. And this even so like the guy, like he caught like the gun, boom, he pops the little, I can remember like he pops a little latch over the gun that keeps it locked in his holster. Boom, he pops it up. It starts to come out. I'm at this point, I'm like, Desmond, hey, I just said his name, but he won't care. I'm like, man, you like, whoa. Like, hey. Like the other guys in the car said something. And that incident went down. They give him a ticket. We take off. We literally cross into the next county, not even 30 minutes, and get pulled over again. And there is no other reason for that to have happened other than the car. Like, there's no, you can say, well, you know, we weren't the second time we were not speeding. I can assure you, if anything, we were going under the speed limit. Like there was a concern and an overall, man, if you don't get us home, like, you know, that feeling. Now I know most white people cannot relate to that. They cannot relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a story that I can relate,
Mm-hmm.
and it puts something in me.
Yes.
100%. Most police officers, most law enforcement are good people going to work, doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
I've got friends. This is what's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I have black friends that I grew up with that don't have an issue with cops,
Mm-hmm.
that are career criminals. And they will tell you, look, man, why can I get mad at him for it? Like, this is what I've like. He's doing his job. I can't get mad at him. What, like, that's his job is to catch people like me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but it puts something in me as a human. One incident,
Mm-hmm.
it puts something in me that now, and I don't now because it's like I'm a way better person than I was in my life back then. But like going through, and it's like, man, I'm concerned of what that is. Like what is that? Right.
Yeah.
So like, oh my God, the cop, like now I don't care. Like, I mean, again, on the flip side of it now, I'm good. I have a nice car. I drive my nice car. Like, I'm not concerned. Like into anything, the cops look at me and speed, and they're like, I'm not pulling him over. Like, it's like, that's the privilege that I have.
That's a luxury.
Yeah.
That's a luxury.
So, yeah. So, but it allows me to empathize and understand what you feel. So much so that from that time period in my life, anytime that I've ever went with a black friend somewhere or we went, I always have made sure that I was driving.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yes.
If you can tell me that there's not something screwed up with that,
yeah.
I don't know. That's one incident. And I've got numerous scenarios that I want to talk about, and we'll talk about on other episodes of this. But that's just what I wanted to share, because I don't want to share the racism perspective of only coming from a middle-aged black man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was what you just said was very key, is that people learn stuff not from one incident. Normally there's a lot of different stories. And what I don't want to get lost is that black people do not hate cops. I mean, you got some people who do. And that's a problem whether you're black or white. You hate cops. But we have inherent skepticism not because George Floyd got killed by a cop. White people only know about that because it hit TV. Most of us can tell you about like 10 people in our neighborhood that's had some type of injustice issue, whether they got their arm broke, whether they got pepper sprayed for no reason. Whether
as a black person, you're taught as a child to avoid any police contact whatsoever at all costs.
And look, not because we just woke up and said what cops hate black people. We have stories that we can tell that happened. Let me tell you my story.
So that stems, and that stems from the devaluing of word in society that says, because history has shown us in the history books of all the crimes and all the guilty verdicts and all those things, there is a bias against people of color. You can deny whatever you want to. The numbers don't lie.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and just putting on my psychology hat, is that when things aren't really affecting you, about going back to like conversation, when you aren't talking about something that ain't affecting you, it's hard for you to really understand it. And so I've had white people, most of my friends are probably white, if I can say that. I've had white people come and say, man, I didn't really know y'all had it like that. Every time something happened, I didn't even know that was going on. Because a lot of times when you're talking about that hurting part, we're not listening, we're not hearing the hurt from others until it literally jumps in our face and says, hey, this is what's going on. And that's why it is so key that white people listen to us, hear us, and then let's have a conversation so that you can't actually hear these stories. You can't hear these stories if you don't want to talk to me. You don't understand what happened in Roots. I guarantee you that most people don't even understand the atrocities that happened during the slave days or Jim Crow and all. They don't know. It's hard to understand it when Colin Kaepernick, and that's a hot subject, when Colin Kaepernick is
I want
taking
to
it,
talk about that on the next episode too.
it's hard to understand why. Now, maybe you don't agree with the politics of it, but you need to understand why. Why? Let me tell you my story. So I've never been a person to, I've always people say, oh, I call it chill. You know, people catch them chills. They just, for no reason, just go down. I've never been a person to catch chills. I was on my way to Atlanta with a friend of mine. Again, I've never smoked weed a day in my life. I might have tried a little bit of alcohol when I was in college, just trying to do something because I was out of my parents.
You're rebelling a little bit.
But look, Shane, nothing hard. It was the not even martinis, the little bubbly, colorful stuff. Kool-Aid, Boone's Farm, half Kool-Aid, half that type stuff.
Yeah.
Always been a clean cut shaving guy. Don't wear jewelry, don't curse. You know me.
Yeah.
We were on our way to Atlanta, and this is right around the end of my music career. I'm on the way to Atlanta with a buddy, and he's the same way, just clean cut guy. We get pulled over on 85 outside of Spartanburg, South Carolina. So they pulled us over, one cop, then two cops, then three cops. And so then they asked my buddy who was driving to get out of the car. Now, at that time, I'm in my 30s, Shane. I'm not a kid. He's in his 30s. Our jeans aren't sagging. I'm probably dressed with a dress shirt on like this. Can't remember what I had on. They pulled him out. They got him out there, and it started getting a little discouraging because they had him out there too long. Then a guy comes up, another cop comes up on my side. I'm in the passenger side. He says to me, hey, can I see your ID? So I get my ID, Alex Todd, Greensboro, North Carolina at the time. He says, hey, is there any drugs in this car? I said, no. I said, we don't even smoke. He says, well, the dog is going crazy back there. I said, dog's going crazy. I said, I don't know why, sir. You always told, sir, yes, sir. And I'm older than this guy. I don't know why, sir, but no, we don't do anything. That's not us. We're on our way to a business meeting in Atlanta. So then, Shane, they asked me to get out the car. Then they proceeded to we were going to be in Atlanta for several days. We had our luggage in there. They proceeded to take everything out of his car and put it on the side of the road. Now, this is a winter's. It does get cold in the South. Even though people don't believe that in South Carolina, they can get chilly. This is in the winter. We're sitting on the side of the road while they take everything out of the car, while they're doing sweeps and all this stuff. Now we got like 4 or 5 cars there. And the guy says, well, there's got to be something here, sir. The dogs are jumping. You sure there's something you don't want to tell me? I said, sir, I'm a Christian. That's not, if it was something here, I wouldn't know nothing about it. And so after about a little over an hour, Shane, they decided to let us go. Now, first off, they didn't put our stuff back in the car. We had to put everything back in the car the way it was, get everything back. And I noticed after that day, even to this day, because it was so cold, I just get chills for no reason. I could just be walking, the Holy Ghost ain't hit me. It can be in my hot home with the heated floors, and I'll just get a chill. And it didn't happen until that day. Now, that's a very calm story. Mm-hmm. I've heard stories that will knock your socks off.
So I'll share one the next time we do this. And that's the thing. And the conversation, I think we're both in agreement that it started. We're not the only ones who are starting it, but we're gonna play a part in starting it. And I think you and I can circle back in a day or two and have our own conversation. But I want to. To wrap this up, I want to speak from my perspective in today's climate and today and what's happening. I don't get emotional. I don't, my kids have probably only seen me cry once or twice. I don't it's not something I do. Mm-hmm. I'm tired. Mm-hmm. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm sad. I feel let down. And it's because of a lot. And the reality of it is some of it stems with a lot of people playing safe. And this is going to be inflammatory, but playing safe in their white comfort, in their white home, in their white church, and going about life as normal, when people who are the exact same as me and as everybody else are going through a really, really hard time. And I'm sure people here where I'm at, they don't think because it's not protesting like it's happening, wherever and whatever. But a big part of my next stage and my next initiative in life is bringing trauma and bringing these things to the forefront. And I don't know what it's like to be a black guy. I can't even pretend. But I know what it's like to be a white guy. And I know the conversations that probably aren't happening yet in your home. And I know the conversations that need to be happening in your home. And you can say, well, I'm not a racist. Why would I go ahead? My kids had never heard me use the N-word, and I don't need to bring it up. Because somebody's going to talk to them about it. And somebody's going to teach them about it. You wouldn't allow somebody else to teach them about sex ed. This ain't any different. I'm not trying to be like cliche and sit up here but the conversation, it has to happen. If you are a community leader or you think you are, even if you don't have a title, and people say, well, I'm not getting on social media. That's not what I do. I do my speaking out. Well, today's world lives on social media. If social media is not important, then I don't want you here. I don't want you posting about community events. Otherwise, why are you doing it? Because you're doing it because that's where people live. That's where you're getting the attention. And I'm going to be frank. I actually looked. And I'm sure it's not directly because of it. And it's not even about the number because I don't care. It's because of what it represents that we're still not getting it. I've got 6 less Facebook friends than I had before this started. I got 6 less. I'm not angry because you're gone. Quite frankly, I'm glad you are. But it's unfortunate that you're going to miss out on a real education and a real understanding of what's going on. And I'm a flawed human being. You can point out a lot of things in my life. I wear every one of my failures externally because you can't use them against me if I put them out there first. I've made more mistakes. I've hurt people. I've done more than my fair share, I can assure you. But what I don't understand is when you can be blind, ignorant, scared, cowardly, fearful of someone who is just as scared of you as you are of them. When you grow up and you go into the outdoors, you say, oh, well, when you encounter a snake, don't worry about it because that snake's just as scared of you as you are of them. Well, humans, you're going to have to go about it a different way. And you're going to have to go in whatever that, like the snake representing intimidation or fear, you're going to have to sit down and try to charm the snake. And that goes both ways. It has to change. And I will not. I will risk whatever I've got to risk. I got people that are commenting on this, thanking me for doing this in Saudi Arabia, in New Zealand, in Australia, in all walks of the world. And racism happens in all of that. And I know there's other bad things that happen in the world. But if you're going to follow me and if you're going to pay attention to what I'm doing, I am begging you to sit down tomorrow night with your kids and have a conversation and ask them what racism is. Ask them what it is and guide them and teach them and show them an example of what it's not. If you've got to go overboard and take them out and sit down with a black family and have dinner that you don't know, do that. Do that. And it goes the other way too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a black family and you don't understand and you want to relate, call me. I'll go sit down and have dinner with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. We're going to find out. We probably got a lot more in common than we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fed up with it. That's why this was started.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I reached out to you. And I don't want this to be just about something that Shane's doing. If you want to be a part of this long term, if you want to be a part of this, whoever you are, wherever you are, if you want to come on and have a conversation with AT, and I call him AT, and that's not going to change. So, I'm going to have a conversation with AT.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody else, I think we need to continue to do this, and I'm going to do it. I understand if you don't or can't or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm fed up, and I'm addressing white people to white people.
Mm-hmm.
It is time for you to shed your fear.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're angry about people looting and you're angry about people rioting, well, stop being a keyboard warrior and bitching and complaining about it and walk down there and tap on them on the shoulder and say, I got a bottle of water. Can I talk to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you believe and you're a Christian and you believe the way you believe, then you believe that even if you get hurt, I guess that was your time. I don't necessarily believe some of that, but run to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Run to what you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't mean to get all emotional and whatever, but I'm hurt for a different reason, and I know I can't relate to your pain. I can't relate to the frustration that you have as a black person. I can't do it. I won't even pretend to, but I understand it. And I'm going to be honest with you, brother. I feel it too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it too.
So we started this conversation this evening saying we want to have more conversations, and I'm excited and almost feel like we achieved what we were trying to do, is have conversation. I feel like I have to leave with addressing just what's going on now. And first, let me just say, I think I'm the average black guy who is not too far to the left, too far to the right, which is an average black person who, just like every one of you guys, wake up in the morning, put on your britches, to go to work to try to make some money, to pay for your kids, schooling, their college, and you're trying to make enough money to put the food on the table. You're trying to make enough money so that when wife asks for vacation in the summer, you can at least try to take her to the beach for a couple of days. The same type of guy who, went to school so I could have education so I wouldn't have to, struggle all my life. The same type of guy who's worried about, my kids gonna do what they're supposed to do all the time. And really the same guy who's just saying, I just want to be able to live a decent life so that at the end of life, me and my wife can have a little bit of money to go in retirement where we don't have to, move in with our children. So I think I'm just a regular, not just black guy, regular guy. Let me say this though, it's a regular guy. Black people are waiting for that arm just open off and want to say, hey, we all are people. The average black guy, the average black woman, we're not wanting to kill you. We're not wanting to take from you. We just want an opportunity to be able to wake up in the morning and feel like, man, I'll be able to come back home and I'll be safe. I'll be sound. My children will be able to come back home. The average guy, what you're seeing right now on these streets is a manifestation of frustration. But let me make sure that, and I want to leave you guys with this, and this is serious. The protesters and the looters are two different folks. I am concerned that white America is going to see looters and they're going to see protesters and they're going to lump it all into one. And the value of this protest and the value of this movement, the value of George Floyd's life and what it has done to shake a new consciousness in America, I'm concerned that people are going to see these looters and it's going to devalue everything that they're trying to do. And I'm concerned. And so I say this as a black man. The looters are not a part of the protest. Don't lump it together. Don't mix it together. The looters are not a part of the protest.
And you're not saying they're not black. You're saying they don't have the same intention and motive to accomplish what's trying to be accomplished.
Look, just like there are just a few bad apples in the police department, there are a few bad apples in white people and in black people. No and doubt. I'm asking you as a black person who understands what the protesters are protesting for, that you look face value at them and then decouple how you feel about these looters. Because I don't want this to divide us. That is my concern. I don't want it to divide us. And here's my last message. This is not a political thing, but I don't want our government to divide us, folks. We have come a long way. We've talked about Jim Crow. We talked about slavery. But at the end of the day, we have come a long way. Black people, white people, people of color, we've come a long way. And I would hope that this situation doesn't give our government the fuel and ammunition to continue to divide us, those people.
So I saw a lot of that. I saw a lot of that happening, which is why I guess I was called and moved to say, nope, I'm about, I don't know what kind of impact. I don't know if the world will ever see our conversations, but I want it to be shown and put on full display on how normal white people and normal black people interact and love each other and communicate.
My black friend has the same blood that runs through you guys. I have the same fears, the same concerns, and I don't like the looting either.
Nope, me either.
I do understand the protest because I understand what my race had to deal with. Just like a Jewish person would understand another Jewish person in dealing with the Nazi invasion. They will understand it. So I understand my black protesters, but that looting and stuff, I don't agree with it. I understand that there are some opportunists. Yep. And so, folks, I would ask you to take up the fight, and everybody's not going to be activists, everybody's not going to be abolitionists, but I would ask you to take up the fight.
It's a big word for some of these people watching. They don't know what that is, but
take up the fight, like Shane said, in your own home. Just try to make your home a better place where racism doesn't reside, that stereotypes don't reside, and that your home is at least willing to hear from the other side and have a conversation. I hope the next time we have a conversation that we can even open up the line somewhere we can talk to some folks.
So we'll talk about that. I definitely want to do it. I think we can have a maximum of one other guest at a time, but we can maybe schedule some people in, and bring different people from all walks of life. We may even look and see maybe some fringe level celebrities to maybe even bring in between my network and your network. We may be even maybe able to do that as well. So, AT, thank you. I love you. And yeah, it's it. That's it, brother. And,
I love you even more. And again, I appreciate you from a black man to a white man who don't see you as a white man. I see you as Shane. I appreciate what you're doing because you do not have to do this. You do not have to get emotional about this. You can live in your comfort and just try to make your money and get other accolades and awards, but you have decided to take on this challenge. And I liken you to the white boy and girl that jumped on that bus who did not have to leave their homes in Chicago and leave their homes in upscale New York to travel all the way down to Alabama to risk their lives. So I appreciate this, man. From my race to your race, thank you. We need to keep this going. And hopefully, this is the only thing we can hope for. Hopefully that this show will make the world a better place and open up what we intend to do is conversation.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I've already got some different ideas kind of going through my head with this as well. So I love you. I know I've taken you from your family time, and all those different things. I know your phone's over there blowing up with, who knows what kind of stuff, and I'm sure some side comments of different things that are out here.
Jesus is calling.
Well, you better answer that. Don't put. I don't need to go before him, and he's saying, AT put you before me. Like I don't need that on your jacket. We don't need that. So I love you. Have a great evening, and let's chat the next day or so.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
All right, brother.
All right. Bye-bye.